for the Norwalk Unified School District. And I have the honor of introducing our speakers for this snapshot. We have Alex Jaregui and Nicole Foote, and they will be presenting Delving Deeper with Questioning during interactive read alouds using Jamboard. I'll be collecting questions in the chat, so as they're speaking, feel free to put the questions you have, and at the end of their time, we can try to answer some of your questions. And we'll also share a link to their slides at the end of the session. So this snapshot is being recorded and will appear later on the Cotsen Connect website. So enjoy this session. Here's Alex and Nicole.
Thank you so much, Lisa. We are so excited to be presenting today. And thank you for everyone who took their time today, Saturday, to be with us. And we're really excited. We've taken this journey on delving deeper with questioning. And a little bit of background on us. Nicole and I, we've been teaching the same amount of time for 30 years. And for the majority of those years, we've worked together. And just the collaboration that we've been able to have, I feel like has been precious and has really helped me to grow as an educator. So a couple years ago, we were chosen to be in Cotsen, and I was a mentor and she was a fellow. It was wonderful to be able just to work side by side and to be able to just grow in our teaching. And so, yeah, we're going to start off by, talking about our journey, and I'm going to let Nicole do that.
Hi, so like Alex said, we went on this journey together. And one of the things that I found throughout my teaching was that when I would ask children, do you have any questions either about the story or even in other areas, I would get crickets. And little ones often don't know what to ask. So I think as educators, we need to help them with designing their questions. And one of the things that I found was that in our work in Cotsen and just listening to all of the different speakers was that sometimes our students' natural curiosity is kind of taken from them when they start school because they become answerers of questions rather than askers of questions. And they're trying to think of, well, what does my teacher want me to say? What does my teacher want me to ask? And so I think sometimes with the little ones, we really need to teach them how to ask questions. So Alex, can you go to the next slide? So as I said, their natural curiosity is sometimes replaced by their desire to impress teachers with correct responses. But in second grade, our standard actually says ask and answer questions such as who, what, where, when, why, and how to demonstrate understanding of key details in text. So we're going to show you our journey of what we did to elicit quality questions from students during Read Aloud. And you're going to see how it started out and the type of questions that we got in the beginning. And then you can see as a story progresses, how the questions become less surface level and more deeper into the content of the story and the underlying ideas in the text. So we started our journey with Comprehension Connections by Tanny McGregor. And this has been the basis for all of our different areas of reading instruction. And the whole idea of notice and wonder is really laid out in Tanny's book. And we're going to focus on the part that's questioning. And one of the stems that she uses is I wonder, as you can see, and what you've heard in other sessions today. And we're going to talk about how to get our kids to wonder during the text.
Thank you, Nicole. So during this time, in Nicole's second year of her Cotsen journey, we really were focusing on questioning, and especially during COVID time when it was, all on screen, and then it became hybrid. She really wanted to get her students to think deeper, right? And to ask deeper thought-provoking questions. And we had been using the depth of knowledge wheel, and the students were doing a pretty good job. They were doing level 1s and level 2s, maybe some level 3 questioning. But Nicole was like, we got to get them to just start asking deeper questions. And how do we do that? And she's like, hey, you're my mentor. Why don't you research it? So I was like, sure. So I researched a ton of different amazing articles. And this first one here by Ron Richhart, I have a quote that just really stuck with me and really helped to inspire me with this work. And he says, questions can help us foster a culture of thinking, that is, help us create a place in which the group's individual as well as collective thinking is valued, visible, and actively promoted as part of the regular day-to-day experience of all group members. So that's what we really wanted to do. We wanted to get everyone involved in this question-making process, right? And it was going to be a culture, and we wanted that to happen. It was already happening. We just wanted to deepen that. And of course, there's another article there for your viewing or reading pleasure as well. Now, with the depth of knowledge, Nicole and I would sit down and we would say, okay, for level 3, let's look at to construct, right? So how can students construct their own questions? How can they draw conclusions by asking questions, right? How can they formulate their own questions, like just on their own? How can they critique the story or whatever they're doing by asking questions? And then even level 4, right? How are they going to be able to design their own questions? How are they going to connect to the text by asking questions? How will they just be able to create questions by using the story that they were using, or that we're reading, or that they're reading? So then that got me into we use in our district, we use Lucy Calkins' Reader's Workshop. And so I did a mini lesson catered towards this very thing. So the teaching point was, readers ask questions out loud by wondering what's happening before, during, and after a book is read to learn something new, right? And so of course we did the connect, but the teach and the active were a little bit different, because what I did was, and you'll see in a bit, I used the Jamboard to model the active part of like the beginning of the story. And then they were able to do I did the teach part, and then they did the active part where they would come up with questions. And then of course, at the end, I reinforced what we had learned by talking about the teaching point. So let me just show you real quick what I did. And I put this on here because we did talk about this in our little blurb about Jamboard, but we're actually not going to go into the Jamboard and how to use it. But at the end of our slideshow, which you're going to get, we would love, our emails are there, we would love to be able to take you through Jamboard. Once 2 or 3 minutes of learning it, you're gonna be hooked. So let me show you what we did. So I used the story, oh, excuse me, here it is. Okay, so I used the story, How Chipmunk Got His Stripes. It was part of the interactive read aloud that Nicole was doing, and it was on folk tales. And so this story, just real quick, is about how Brown Squirrel got his stripes because he won a bet against Bear. Bear got angry with him, smashed him, and then Squirrel, to trick him, said, if you let me go, I can say sorry and apologize to you because I was mean to you. So Bear let Squirrel go. Squirrel got upset and then ran off. And as he was running off, Bear got his claws on Squirrel and put stripes with his claws, right? And then that's how Chipmunk got his stripes. And that's why he's called Chipmunk. So at the beginning, I said, what do you think? What are some questions that we can talk about with the story? They didn't know anything about it. They looked at the front cover and the back cover. And then of course, I gave an example. Why does a chipmunk begin to have stripes in the first place? And I want you to notice some of these questions, right? Like, why are there so many butterflies? I wonder, or who made music, right? I wanted to validate everyone's questions or statements and just kind of keep that kind of going, because like we had talked about before, it's a culture, right? A culture of questioning, a culture of accepting, a culture of, right, just being able to ask and elicit those questions. So then in the middle, when we got to the part where Brown was, Bear was just really upset about the fact that Squirrel was challenging him, right? So I asked, what are some questions that you guys have about the story? What do you think is going to happen, right? So is the sun going to rise again? Why are the animals chanting? And then this wasn't a question, but I like this: Bear might eat the squirrel, right? A prediction. right? So just in looking at these questions, the questions are even as you're reading the story, this is what readers do, right? What we do as readers is we're always thinking about questions. And that's what I kept on telling them is, as a reader, you're always asking yourself questions and you don't even think about those questions, but you are, and that makes you a better reader, right? So at the very end, I asked them, so what do you guys think, right? What are some questions that you have about the end or about what happened, right? So I love these questions. Like Nicole said, it was a progression. They got so much deeper, right? Will Bear ever be happy, right? And then there was this little boy that got so angry because he said, I wonder what the bear is going to do next. And he said, so Mr. Jaregui, tell me what the bear is going to do next. And I said, I don't know, because the author just stopped here, and he says, well, is there like another book? Because there's always books and series and stuff. And I said, actually, there's not. And he says, well, and then we were able to talk about unanswered questions, right? That sometimes there are questions that we can't answer, but we can always think, what would our ending be? What would we choose? What would we decide? But I love how frustrated he was. And that meant that he was so into the story. And so I'm going to have Nicole share with you what she just did with her students.
So when we took the journey of eliciting deeper questions, the first thing Alex did was, he presented this book. This was our first take into the idea of getting them to ask deeper questions. Once he did that lesson, I continued the idea and I did it. I continued having them ask questions, and their questions were starting to get deeper and deeper. And one thing that you can do with the asking of questions after they've done it for a while is they could actually take their Jamboard questions, if you allow the kids to go in and type their own Jamboard questions as the kids are getting older, and then they can sort those questions into questions that are above the surface and below the surface questions. Above the surface meaning that you can actually see it in the picture, or the answer is right in the words, or you can look at, is the question something that I really have to make an opinion about or make an inference about and find evidence in another way? So this whole idea of asking questions, we later took into inferencing, so that we looked at our questions and we had the questions look at inferencing. Now, what you see here is, this is when we took it to having them start jotting their own questions to use a reader's notebook. Because we were on Zoom, we didn't have, it was hard to do sticky notes, because in second grade, we actually do sticky notes all over our books. But because we were on Zoom, it was easier to manage if it was in an actual notebook. So I introduced a reader's notebook, and you can see here, this was for vampires don't wear polka dots in the Bailey School Kids series. And these are 3 different kids' journals about that story. So they have both noticings and wonderings here, but you can see here, Mila, is our teacher a vampire? This is what one of the kids was asking. Is it a vampire? And then down here, you can see she's asking, did the teacher hypnotize Eddie? Because the Eddie had, in the words it says, because this is a book with no pictures, it's a chapter book, and Eddie starts doing weird things that he wouldn't normally do. So she's like, did he get hypnotized? And then one of the questions over here, they were talking about, he asks, are they scared of the teacher? Like, why are they scared of the teacher? So we had a discussion about that. And then here in this one, the person's asking, is the coffin magic? There's like a coffin that they go down into the basement and of Miss Jeepers' house, and there's a coffin there. So they're wondering, is her husband in there? Is it magic? And then they're like, what happened to Mr. Jeepers? So they really start getting into more of the questions of the story rather than like superficial things, like in Alex's where it said, is there music? Or why are there butterflies on the page, which has nothing to do with the actual meat of the story. It's more superficial. So the more you do it, the better their questioning becomes. And we were also able then to go back as we were reading and start answering some of those questions. So it's not only important to ask the questions, but as you find answers to the stories, readers go back and go, oh, aha, I have the answer to that. And so we would frequently flip back and look back at the Jamboard or look back at other pages to see if we have answers to any of the questions we had asked earlier in the text. So using the Jamboard is a great feature because you could have the kids put their own questions in. I think it's especially great for upper grades because, as I said, you can put all of the questions in the Jamboard, and then you can sort the questions. You can see who have similar questions. There's a lot of things you can do with it. You can actually talk about the quality of the questions, going back to what our keynote speaker was talking about. But here's an example of what you can do without a Jamboard. So this book is The Proudest Blue, and it's about a little girl who gets her hijab to wear for the first time. And this happens as a sixth grader. It's something really important in the culture. And it's a proud moment. And it's a time when she is like thought of as a princess. She's becoming coming into her own. So these were some questions that they had. And one of the things I added this year was I added actually, I wonder in front of the question. So before I was getting a lot of noticings, as you heard him, our speaker say, you know, you get like some noticings. How do you change those noticings into questions? Well, one way to do that is to put I wonder in front of the question. So she asked, I wonder why there's a head in the water. And then I validated the person who asked the question, put their name, and then I asked if anyone else has the same question. And so underneath you see the numbers of how many people also had the same question. And once I did that, it sparked other people to want to ask questions. So can you go to the next slide, please?
Yes.
So then we had, this is still, this is the middle of the story. And in the story, she wears her hijab to school. And someone asks right here, I wonder if someone's going to be a bully. And we have had other stories where, you know, someone felt bad because they didn't have something that other people had, or they felt bad because someone said something that hurt their feelings. And so this actually goes back to things that we were already talking about. Someone else asked, I wonder what a hijab is. Great question. What is it? Where is it in the picture? What is it for? And the book actually talks about the importance of it as well. And then Kate asked, I wonder if her sister's going to stand up for her if she is bullied. So can you go to the next slide? So then towards the end of the story, she does have people laughing at her. And one of the questions was, is she going to say something back? Or what is she going to do? And she actually ends up just going on. She ignores them. Her mother told her this would happen. And remember, you're a princess and you need to ignore these things. And she actually does. So that's an example of when we went back into the story to see if any of our questions were answered. And it actually was. She doesn't say anything. And these are the questions at the end. I wonder what will happen the next day at school. What's going to happen tomorrow? Is she going to wear her hijab the next day? I wonder, what did the boy actually say to her? That was, because it doesn't tell you, it just shows the boy talking and laughing, and he's all in a silhouette. So what did he say? And I wonder if she will still be bullied. Did her walking away solve that problem, or is she still going to have problems in the future? So that's the way that the story has those unanswered questions. And like Alex said, you can talk about how we don't know. The author didn't tell us. We have to kind of think, what do we think is going to happen? And all of these are ways to get them to think more deeply about the text rather than focusing on the picture or superficial things like, oh, I like the little girl's hair with the bows. Why is she wearing bows in her hair? I used to get questions like that, which were related simply to the pictures rather than to the story itself.
I just want to let you all know we just have 1 minute left. Oh, great.
Yes, so we want to say thank you for joining us. We hope that our journey has helped you or inspired you to teach students how to ask questions, right? Elicit quality questions from them in your read alouds or in anything that you're teaching them. If you need anything from us, our emails are here, and Lisa's going to put in the slide presentation and use it how you would like. And yeah, we're just super happy to have you join us today.
Thank you so much, Alex and Nicole. There's some nice comments in the chat too.
Great.
And hopefully everyone can access their slides. And you guys, you can save the chat if you'd like to take time to read the comments after. There's some really nice comments. Do you know how to do that?
No.
Save. Go down to the chat.
Yeah, it says
three little dots.
Just save chat, right?
Right.
Okay, perfect. Got it.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, my